You're not imagining it. You really do attract people who seem deeply understanding at first, but somehow always end up draining you. They listen better than anyone. They echo your thoughts, finish your sentences, hold space for your pain, until one day they turn cold, distant, manipulative, and in the end, you're left questioning your sanity, apologizing for bleeding while they walk away clean. This isn't just bad luck or a pattern you stumbled into. It's something far more ancient, more psychological, and more dangerous. There are people in this world who possess empathy not as a bridge to connect, but as a weapon to control. They are called dark empaths, and what draws them to you isn't your kindness or your light. It's your wound, a wound you've buried so deep you barely know it's there, but they can smell it before you even speak. They move toward pain like sharks to blood, and until you understand what they see, you will keep letting them in and calling it love. In this video, we're going to break down exactly why you attract these people, what invisible signal you're sending, and who you must become to break the cycle. Because this isn't just about protecting yourself, it's about transforming the part of you that made this dynamic possible in the first place. If you've ever asked, why do I keep ending up in relationships that leave me smaller, weaker, or more confused? This is the answer you were never meant to hear. And once you do, you won't see yourself or them the same way again. They don't come after you with fangs. They don't shout, dominate, or demand. Dark empaths are far more dangerous than that, because they don't chase you. They mirror you, and when they do, they don't just reflect your personality. They replicate your soul. They show up as everything you've ever wanted. Attuned, present, disarmingly safe. They listen with eyes that don't flinch when you share the things that once made others walk away. They validate the ache in your chest without needing details. They agree with your values, echo your beliefs, even confess wounds that uncannily resemble your own. It feels like you've finally been found, like the loneliness that's followed you your whole life is finally broken. But what you think is recognition is replication. You're not falling in love with them, you're falling in love with the version of yourself they've created to seduce you. This is not connection, this is calculation. Because dark empaths possess something both rare and lethal, high cognitive empathy. That means they can read emotions, observe patterns, decode unspoken needs, not to nurture you, but to control the game before you even know you're in one. And because they don't show their hand, they don't trigger your defenses. Quite the opposite. They make you feel seen, not in some shallow, flirty way, but in a bone-deep, almost spiritual way. So spiritual, in fact, that you convince yourself this is different. This isn't lust. This is fate, soulmate energy, twin flames. Past life connection, all of it, and that's how you miss the trap. Take a common example. You meet someone. The first conversation goes deeper than most relationships ever do. You share something about your childhood, the night you stopped believing anyone would protect you, and they not only listen, they match it with their own pain, their own abandonment, their own impossible mother or absent father, and suddenly, your nervous system exhales. Finally, you think, someone who gets it. But fast forward a few months, the moment you challenge them, ask for space, set a boundary, everything changes. The same person who once listened with godlike patience now withdraws, criticizes, dismisses, weaponizes the very vulnerabilities you trusted them with. You go from seen to smeared, and you don't even know what happened. Here's what happened. You were never in a relationship. You were in a performance. They were playing you by playing you, and that confusion you feel? That's not your fault. It's part of the design. Because the human brain bonds not through logic, but through mirrored resonance. When someone reflects you well enough, often enough, you begin to feel safe, not because they're safe, but because they've bypassed your skepticism with simulated intimacy. They study you until they can be you. But why does this work so well? Because your deepest hunger, the one you don't talk about, is not to be loved, it's to be understood. When someone shows up who seems to see the you that others missed, your boundaries melt. You stop analyzing, you start hoping, and that hope becomes the very thing they exploit. They become the person you never had, and then they punish you for needing them. The truth is brutal but necessary. You were not randomly chosen. You were chosen because your light has cracks, because you're expressive, intuitive, emotionally articulate, and still searching. They sensed that emptiness and tailored themselves to fit into it. You thought they were your mirror, but they were your trap. And here's the most haunting part. They didn't seduce you with love. They seduced you with yourself. So next time someone seems to reflect your soul perfectly, ask yourself, are they truly seeing you, or are they building the mask they'll later weaponize? They don't just find you, they're drawn to you, like wolves to a bleeding deer. Dark empaths are pulled toward your unhealed wound, not because you're weak, but because you're still leaking, and you don't even know it's happening. You dress well, you're self-aware, you read books, listen to podcasts, maybe even meditate. You've convinced yourself that your past is behind you. But pain doesn't disappear because you stop talking about it. It sinks deeper, into posture, word choice, facial micro-expressions, into the very texture of your energy. And predators can smell that. What they sense in you isn't drama or desperation. It's something more subtle, more ancient, a longing you haven't fully claimed, the longing to be chosen, to be fully seen, to be rescued. It's that silent ache left behind when a parent emotionally abandoned you, when you learned that love must be earned, that approval comes with performance, that needs make you too much. Most of us carry this wound, but what makes you a target isn't the wound itself, it's the fact that you're still hiding it. And when you hide something, you can't protect it. Dark empaths don't just spot this kind of pain, they know how to speak its language. They see your hesitation to ask for help and offer it freely. They notice your subtle fear of rejection and flood you with acceptance. They decode your silence, match your rhythm, soothe your nervous system, until you attach to them like they're home. But they're not home, they're the lock disguised as the key. Here's the psychological truth. Humans don't just attract what they want, they attract what they're still trying to resolve. And unresolved trauma is not neutral, it's loud in the unconscious. It plays out in repetition. Freud called this repetition compulsion, the tendency to recreate painful dynamics from childhood in the hope of rewriting the ending. So when a dark empath enters your life, they may feel familiar, not because they're right for you, but because your inner child recognizes the shape of their dysfunction, and that recognition masquerades as attraction. Let's say your father was emotionally absent, or your mother only showed love when you performed well. You grew up tiptoeing, caretaking, trying to be easy to love. You never learned to ask for what you needed, only how to shape yourself into what others wanted. That wound didn't disappear. It simply evolved into patterns, people-pleasing, over-functioning, tolerating crumbs, and calling it devotion. Dark empaths don't create that pattern. They just follow the trail your unhealed self leaves behind. They move in quickly, identify the role you unconsciously offer them, and step into it like an actor stepping into a well-worn costume. You feel seen, but what's really happening is reenactment. The worst part? You might even defend them, because deep down, your trauma is hoping this time the story ends differently. That this one, the empathic one, the good listener, the spiritual one, will finally love you the right way. But they won't, because they don't love you. They love the wound that lets them in. You didn't invite them with your words, you invited them with your pain. And until you stop hiding that pain from yourself, you'll keep attracting people who see it before you do, and use it better than you ever could. The more you crave to be understood, the easier you are to devour. Let that sink in. You think the most dangerous thing you could do is open your heart to someone cold. But what if the real danger, the greater danger, is opening your soul to someone who seems to understand everything? Not because they actually love you, but because your hunger makes you delicious. See, vulnerability without discernment is not intimacy, it's spiritual striptease. You undress too fast, expose too much, offer up your deepest wounds to someone you barely know, not because you trust them, but because they feel like safety. And that's the trick. Dark empaths know that the quickest way to your loyalty is through reflection. They make you feel heard in ways no one else ever has. They match your tone, mirror your pain, nod at just the right moment. You think it's connection, but it's choreography. And every story you spill, every scar you confess, is another lever they can use. This isn't love, it's weaponized understanding. You think you're bonding, but what's really happening is surrender. You disarm yourself because they didn't take your sword. They handed you a soft cloth, wiped your tears, and made you feel like you didn't need the armor anymore. That's how it works. They don't cut you. You hand them the knife, because they wrapped it in empathy. And why? Because there's a part of you that's still starving to be seen. Maybe your parents never really looked at you beyond your achievements. Maybe you were the strong one, the peacemaker, the caretaker. So you got love by staying quiet, by being useful, by not needing anything. Over time, that unspoken deprivation becomes a deep, silent ache. Please, someone, just see me. Dark empaths can smell that ache before you say a word. They study your patterns. They watch how fast you open up. They track your eye contact, your voice inflection, your body language. And then, like a shapeshifter, they become exactly what you're longing for. They don't control you with dominance. They control you with resonance. And here's the brutal irony. You don't stay because you're manipulated. You stay because it feels real, because being mirrored by someone who knows how to reflect your soul is the closest thing to emotional heroin, and you've never been that high before. But that high comes at a cost. Because once you're fully open, once you're emotionally naked, the moment you begin to trust them as your source of safety, that's when they start to shift. They get colder, more critical, less available, and now you're trapped, trying to win back the version of them who never really existed. You chase the mirror, not realizing it was always pointed at you. You thought you were being seen, but really, you were just being scanned. They don't just wound you, they make you believe you wounded them. This is the final stage of their game, where the predator-prey dynamic flips and you become the guilty one. Suddenly, setting a boundary becomes selfish, asking for honesty becomes toxic, needing space becomes abandonment, and without realizing it, you start apologizing for the very things that kept you alive. This is gaslighting in its purest form, not just denying your reality, but replacing it with theirs. And when you live long enough in their script, you begin to doubt your own mind. You ask yourself questions you should never have to ask. Am I the problem? Did I make them act this way? Am I too much? Too needy? Too sensitive? That's the ritual. That's the sacrifice. Because what they're really doing is turning your sanity into their altar. Every apology you make, every doubt you swallow, every piece of yourself you cut away to keep the peace, it's an offering, not of love, but of power. And they feed on it like priests of a religion you never agreed to join. You weren't just manipulated. You were harvested. You weren't loved. You were offered up. And the worst part? You held the knife, and they convinced you to cut yourself in their name. And yet, here you are, breathing, watching this, which means the ritual didn't end with your destruction. It ended with your rebirth. Because what they thought was an ending was really the beginning of your alchemy. In every ancient text of transformation, the first stage is always the same. Nigredo, the blackening, the collapse, the rot. That's what you went through. The self you once were, the eager to please, the endlessly open, the starving to be seen version of you, was reduced to ash. It had to be. There was no other way. And from that ash, the second stage begins, illumination. What breaks open is not just pain, but clarity. You see with new eyes. You notice masks faster, patterns sooner, motives clearer. You are no longer only empathic, you are initiated. You are no longer just sensitive to feelings, you are dangerous to illusions. This is the paradox. The wound they exploited has now become your weapon. From broken mirror to sharpened blade, from prey to pattern breaker, from vessel of other people's shadows to one who holds their own light and darkness in balance. In myth, this transformation has many faces. You are the wounded healer, carrying scars that can now guide others. You are the phoenix, rising from ashes that once looked like your grave. You are the oracle, able to read beneath appearances because you've lived through deception. And like Persephone, you have walked the underworld, and you return, not innocent, but sovereign. That is who you become after the burn, not the same, never the same. And that is the gift hidden inside the fire. You no longer fear it, because you know you can survive it. Surviving a dark empath is not the end of the story. It's the start of living differently, but only if you turn what you've endured into practice. Here are 3 truths you must carry forward. 1. Silence is power. Stop over-explaining yourself to people who twist your words. The more you talk, the more ammunition you hand them. Learn to sit in silence. Let your no be complete without an essay. Real strength doesn't shout, it withholds. 2. Heal the signal. Predators are drawn to wounds you refuse to face. If you don't confront your need to be chosen, you'll keep advertising it to anyone who knows how to listen. Healing isn't about pretending you're fine. It's about recognizing the wound, owning it, and refusing to let it choose for you again. 3. Practice ruthless discernment. Not everyone who gets you deserves access to you. Some mirrors reflect you back in love. Others reflect you back in chains. Don't judge by words. Judge by patterns, by consistency, by how your body feels in their presence. Trust the flinch. Respect the hesitation. That's your instinct warning you. Here's the bold truth. You don't need to become colder, harder, or less human to survive. You don't need to stop feeling. What you need is to stop serving your heart on a silver platter to people who've come to feed. The predators don't starve when you shut down. They starve when you wake up. So here's what it comes down to. You attract dark empaths, not because you're weak, but because you've been wounded. And wounds, when hidden, bleed louder than words. They don't hunt your kindness. They hunt the fracture you haven't claimed. They don't love your soul. They love your hunger to be seen. And as long as you let that hunger control you, you'll keep mistaking their reflection for connection. But survival changes you. If you've been through the fire and lived to tell the story, then you already know you can't go back. The old self, the one that lived to be chosen, to be validated, to be mirrored, has burned away. What's left is different, sharper, stronger, and if you honor that transformation, no dark empath will ever feast on you again. Because the truth is, they don't disappear when you wake up. The world is full of them. What changes is you. What changes is the way you carry yourself. What changes is the way you no longer hand over the knife wrapped in empathy. The end of this cycle doesn't come when they stop coming. It comes when you stop opening the same door.